Hi, and welcome to Cardano Starter Kit number 4. My name is James. Just like with every starter kit, this one is an experiment, and I'm pretty excited, so let's jump right into it. This is our first example of a mini starter kit, and today there's kind of 3 things I'm thinking about doing. One, I want to go on a little adventure just to show you what's possible right now if you kind of tinker and hack around with the currently available tools for playing with Cardano. I want to take a look under the hood at what's going on inside of both Daedalus and a Cardano Shelly transaction. And I'm also making this today. It's December 8th, 2020, just as a time capsule, as an example of what we were able to do right now so that we can revisit this in the future as things continue to get easier and easier. One thing I'm not really going to do today is to send you off on some particular project. You might have some ideas after this, and if you find this starter kit inspiring, that's awesome. But unlike with other ones where the goal really is to get you doing something or on some learning journey, think of this starter kit as more of kind of a show and tell exercise that we can use to start some conversations as we learn to build together. Okay, so this starter kit is about transaction metadata on the Cardano blockchain. I'm going to show you in just a minute some of the first metadata that was posted on Cardano. But needless to say, for the last few months, since the middle of August, we've been able to post metadata to the Shelly blockchain. It's still a little bit difficult. There are still some barriers to entry on this, but I just described how this starter kit is in part a time capsule. All of these things, all the functionality of Cardano is going to get easier over time as we abstract away kind of the underlying code. And you're going to see examples in this video of how this is already happening and how we can get some ideas for where this is headed. Now, before we go try to post our own metadata to a transaction, let's just get a little bit familiar with the structure of that data. And one way to do that is just by poking around at this excellent tool. This was built by the folks behind the Cent stake pool, and you can see their contact information right here. Thank you guys for building this. This is a simple tool for exploring Cardano blockchain intelligence. And if I click through to transaction data, you'll see, okay, current epoch. What is the current epoch? It's currently 234. It's the 8th of December 2020, okay? And you can see that this epoch, there's been metadata on 114 different transactions out of a total of almost 14,000. To date, this is the part that blows my mind. There's only been 2,800 transactions with metadata in them so far in history. Hey, someday this number is going to be in the billions. That's how early it is on this blockchain. And check it out. If I click through here, I can see epoch by epoch how many transactions have had metadata on them. And I can actually click into any of them just to take a look at what that metadata comprised of. So here you can see, what's this, November 21st. Somebody's already posting market data as metadata inside of transactions on the chain, okay? And we're going to talk more about keys later, but notice that this has a key of 1968, and this is a JavaScript object consisting of this looks like some kind of ticker symbol, right? Or this is the notation about what we're looking up the value of, a value and a source of that value. Okay. If you're not familiar with JavaScript object notation, that's what we're looking at here. And that might be one pathway that you want to explore down just to begin to understand what this looks like. But this is not the only kind of data. It's possible just to post a string or a list, for example. We'll look more at those in just a moment. Before we do, I just want to scroll down to the bottom of this list. So it's currently epoch 234. check it out. Right around epoch 227, there's a little increase in the amount of people playing around with transaction metadata. And if I scroll back before that, there's not much. And you can see the very first transactions were during epoch 211, which was in the middle of August. There you go. Okay, here's where it started. And if you look at this, you can see this is somebody related to Spacra putting together a test ballot, okay? Testing out the structure of the data, maybe. Different parameters. Should Spacra buy the first round of beers for all members? Okay. Where are the results for this, guys? And I can bounce around, right? I can look at epoch. Looks like nothing happened between 211 and 216 in mid-September. Okay. Still just people beginning to experiment with what they could do there. But here's the thing about all these. What you've got to understand about this metadata, look at epoch 218, for example, right? This was the 5-day stretch. Maybe this was running from September 17th to September 22nd. Once this metadata is here associated with these transactions, it can't go anywhere. This is part of the permanent ledger, and that's the value of it, okay? So 50 years from now, this information is going to look exactly like it looks today. You'll be able to pull it back, right? What epoch are we going to be in 50 years, right? Epoch 3,500 or 4,000 or something. But the idea is once the data is here, people can access it and use it. Now, once these lists begin to get long, it might be hard to find data. So let's scroll through here. Current epoch 234, a few hours ago, scrolling past some different things are here. I posted some metadata to a transaction. Where is it? Keep going. Must be a little farther than this. See, obviously this scrolling is probably not the way I want to be looking through this. But eventually, I think we're almost there. Eventually, yep. Here it is. Okay. I made some ASCII art to get ready for ADA Day coming up in 2 days on Thursday, December 10th. And this is here. I posted this a few hours ago, but there must be a better way to find this than by scrolling through. And that's what these keys are for over here. So I put a key on this, 2020-12-10, to commemorate December 10th of this year, which is Ada's birthday, Ada Lovelace, and we're going to celebrate her. Okay. I also, earlier today, I put on some words of Miss Lovelace as well. To a different key. So the elite key here, 1337, and then the date 2020-12-10. Okay. We're going to talk more about how keys work in just a moment, but as we continue to build familiarity with how we might navigate this data, let me show you over here. You know, back on the transaction data page of Stake Pool Central, the number of different metadata keys that have been used so far is also a relatively low number, just 24 different keys. So key 0 has probably been used the most, and then anybody's free to pop in and use whatever keys they want. So Roberto and I last week, we were playing around with 1337. You can see that last week you left our mark as Gimbalabs. More on that in just a moment. And then I posted this transaction that just said go build, just because I was trying to figure out if I understood how it worked and all. Okay. We got some lorem ipsum because we were experimenting with formatting. And that's how I posted the word art, was I used a script that I'll show you in just a minute. Okay. But needless to say, these keys are going to be important, right? Because these are what allow us to distinguish between different buckets of transactions. And here you can see the one I made earlier today, 2020-12-10, has just one transaction in it so far from the current epoch, and there it is. Okay. I'm going to leave this site for now, but I do encourage you to play with it, poke around, just see if you can kind of make sense about how this data is structured and how it's appearing here. Another way to look at this metadata is on a blockchain explorer. And I found that AdaStat is really good for this. So I just showed you 2 transactions a moment ago. Okay, I searched for a transaction ID. This is the hash of one of my transactions from last week. And its metadata is what I showed you a moment ago, go build. Look at the cost of this transaction. I didn't actually send any money because all I did was I sent 1 ADA from a wallet that I have set up to itself, right? To one of the receiving addresses within that wallet. And so it didn't actually transfer any money outside of that wallet. But it did incur a fee, right, of 0.17 ADA. And I'm sure if you've been doing anything with delegating or sending ADA, this amount should look pretty familiar, right? This much text didn't add much to the cost of this transaction. However, that ASCII art I posted earlier today, check it out. Here's the metadata. There it is. A slightly bigger transaction. And you can see the transaction fee was a bit higher, 0.27 ADA, for example. But again, I didn't actually send ADA to anybody. I just sent it within my own wallet and incurred this fee. So as you can see, sending data on the Cardano blockchain or any blockchain has a cost. And this can help you wrap your mind around the scope of that cost, right? When I look at this, it helps me really think about the long-term sustainability of the Cardano chain, right? Once there are 45 billion ADA in circulation, where are those staking rewards going to come from? Well, here it is, right? Someday there's going to be a lot more transactions on the chain, and anybody who's sending data across it is going to pay for that, and then this money comes back to all stakeholders. Before we go any further, let's just talk about what metadata is more generally. The word means data about data, right? Data about itself. And for one example of this, we can look at what metadata looks like on a website. All major websites have some sort of metadata in them these days. And for one example, we can just go to cardano.org. Now, metadata doesn't appear on the page. That's kind of the surface level data, okay? The data about this page, however, we can look at it if we open up developer tools and we look at the head of this HTML. Now we might find some style tags here, okay? And a lot of this stuff is changed between when the developers create it and when it goes to what's called production, which is, right, this live produced website that we're seeing right now. Okay, but if I keep scrolling down, eventually I might see some tags that have the meta tag in them. Okay, and today I'm honestly not so concerned about what these things are, what they do. I just want you to know that this exists. There's information behind the scenes of all websites. You already know this. You've heard about cookies. You've heard about some of the privacy concerns raised by the web in its current incarnation. Okay. Metadata is where a lot of this stuff lives. Okay. And you can learn a lot just by, for example, Googling some of what you find here. I'm not going to go in and describe all this right now, but this is a place you can look if you want to learn more about what's going on under the hood. Generally speaking, if you want to know more about how software works, it's always a great idea to go under the hood and tinker around and see what you can see. So another example. I have a copy of Daedalus Flight running right here on my computer, and I put 50 ADA in it last week just to do some experiments, adding transaction metadata to the chain, right? Like we talked about, this has a cost. So you can see right here where I incurred the cost of posting my ASCII art to the chain. And you can see last week where I incurred the cost of posting a couple of words to the chain, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, I made this wallet in Daedalus Flight called testing-metadata, and we're going to use it in just a few minutes. Before we do that, I just want to show you what's going on here. So I'm on a Mac. This is going to be different on different devices. But on a Mac, we have these nice icons that we can use to open up apps, and it makes it like a really nice user experience to not have to worry about everything that's going on in the background. But what if we do want to know more? Well, if I right-click on Daedalus Flight, I have this option, this is true on any app, to show package contents. When I do, I can open up this contents folder, and if you click into Mac OS, you'll see this list of other programs that are running as components in Daedalus. All right, so Daedalus is actually just a front end that makes it look like one unified thing is happening. But what's really happening is the Cardano node and the Cardano wallet are interacting with each other to provide that user experience. If you've ever tried to do anything setting up your own node, or this is what CLI means, Cardano command line interface. If you've ever done anything on the command line, maybe some of these names look familiar to you. If they don't, it's okay. I just want you to know these are here. And so this is what Roberto and I did. As I'll describe in just a moment, it's not recommended, but what we did is we said, okay, if all of these things are running in the background, can we just use those a little bit to see if we can find an easy way to add some metadata to the chain? And that's exactly what we did. So I'll show that to you now. So how does the data get there? By sending transactions. And just as a reminder, you can go look at adastat.net to see individual transaction data after the point. Okay, but we already did that part, so we can keep going. If you're looking to go deeper into how metadata works on Cardano, I would strongly recommend this blog post as a starting point. Alan McSherry wrote this a month or so ago, and there's a lot of links in here. A lot of what I'm sharing with you today, I started learning by reading this and by following through with the links he shares. Okay, so I just want you to know this is here. There's links to some GitHub repositories where you can go deeper in, and I'm going to talk through some of this stuff right now. Now, the basic format of transaction metadata on Cardano is JavaScript object notation. And so that's what we're looking at right here when you see these kind of curly brackets and colons. And if you've never learned JavaScript object notation, just look it up, right? If you want to have some more background knowledge of what's really going on here. What's cool is that Roberto built something that helps to abstract some of this away. So, you know, there's these three elements here. A key, that's that number I talked about before that helps us organize transactions on the chain, right? A type, and we can look at this list of types here. Type can be int, string, bytes, list, or map, okay? And then some information, and the value that goes here really depends on what type you wrote, okay? So if I write string here, then the value has to be a string, right? If I write int here, then the value has to be a number, and any kind of letters won't work, okay? A map or a list is a set of these component parts. So you might have a list of numbers or a list of strings, or you might have a map of keys and values, okay? So when we look at Roberto's scripts in just a minute, you're going to see a line in the code that looks like this. He's taking the key as a variable. I'll show you where to change that. he's not even letting us change the type. He wrote a script that only works for strings. And then we have a variable that takes the text that we're uploading. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. I hope this makes sense. And if it doesn't, please let me know. I want to know the best ways to kind of communicate this stuff. But before we keep going, a note on keys. Remember a few minutes ago, a few minutes ago, I showed you on Stake Pool Central that only 24 keys have been used so far. Here they are, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some, several digit ones. Somebody wrote a pretty long one with the golden ratio in it. I used this one to represent Thursday's date, Ada's 205th birthday, okay? What's nice about these keys is that there are plenty to go around. These are unsigned 64-bit integers. If you understand what that means, great. But if you don't, what it means is that there are 18 billion different keys that can be used. I don't yet know of a way for somebody to claim a key so that they're the only person who can use it, but maybe that's in the pipeline. For now, just know that we've got a lot of keys that people can claim as their own and use them for their purposes, okay? So what did Roberto and I create? Well, before we get into that, let's talk about what we could have done instead, right? You can build your own Cardano node. You can get Cardano CLI running, and that's probably the best way to go about adding metadata to the chain, okay? Anybody who's going to do this for production, anybody who's going to do this at scale is going to build tools for doing that, all right? And in the future, I'm excited to do another starter kit where we go a little more in depth around creating and signing transactions before posting them to the blockchain. What's coming soon, I believe, is that we're going to have other ways to format and send transactions. This is part of what we're working on with Gimbalabs. What Roberto's working on Dandelion APIs that make it easier just to test ideas for putting, for using the chain. Not necessarily production level ideas, but ways for people like you and me to get a feel for what this stuff can do before we start to build with it. Okay, we might assume that Daedalus is going to make it easier for us to do this in the future. Every time we adopt new technology, we start out with kind of the basic functionality of it. And then as people get their hands on it, that's where abstraction and usability come from. Okay, so these are just all ideas for where we might be going, what we might have done instead had we taken the time to do it this way. But what we really wanted to do was we wanted to hack a little bit. And we wanted to follow this idea of saying, okay, if a Daedalus wallet is already running Cardano node and Cardano wallet and Cardano CLI, can we use that? Can we use a wallet that's already running there so we don't have to worry about signing the transactions, right? This is definitely not the right way to go about things. But so we don't have to worry about some of these extra steps. Can we just play around? And what we found out is that we could. And I'm going to share those scripts with you so you can play around with them in just a moment. But before I do, you shouldn't trust me on this, okay? You shouldn't trust our team. You shouldn't really trust anybody if you're just grabbing a script and trying to do something. These things are not tested. We just wanted to figure out if we could do this, okay? So I'm going to show you what we did, and you can use it and hack around yourself. But this is really not best practice, especially considering that I'm doing this on the main net, okay? The testnet Daedalus Cardano wallet didn't have support for metadata yet. So we thought, well, if we want to figure out if this works, then we're going to have to do it on the main net. And so that's what we did, okay? As you can see, I put about 50 ADA in that wallet. So that was kind of the ceiling of what I could lose if I did something really wrong here. But I just, this is a really important disclaimer. We're hacking around because we're curious about how to use these new tools. But I wouldn't say that what we've created here is ready for everybody just yet. So what do we make? Like I said, we used the Cardano node, Cardano CLI, and Cardano Wallet that are already running as part of Daedalus. I showed you how to open up the package contents and take a look at that. And Roberto wrote some scripts that we're able to use. Again, I have these bullet points. I'm getting ahead of myself. I showed you already what's inside of Daedalus Flight. Okay, so now we're ready to use these Bades Daedalus scripts to post a transaction with metadata to Cardano. So let's go take a look. Here's the GitHub repository. This is public and available for you to come take a look around in. All right. Because it's the right thing to say, we do encourage you to try this on testnet first. If you ever do, I think it's best if you just kind of check this out. But we found that access to metadata transactions was a little bit easier if we just went and used the mainnet. Another thing we're using behind the scenes here are some scripts that Roberto actually wrote years ago just to make it easier to interact with Bash, right? Bash aids, that's why they're called Bades, okay? So if you want to use this, you'll first have to follow the documentation here and use these. Again, if you don't trust people, right, and you shouldn't trust us, don't use this without reading it. But if you do want to go in and figure out how this works, you can. It's here and it's freely available for you to use. I'm not going to demonstrate how to use this right now because once again, my goal is not to guide you through actually doing this, just to kind of talk you through what we did. And so what we did is I installed Bades on my computer and played around with it a little bit. I made sure I had the latest version of JQ installed. And then I grabbed the current repository that you're looking at. And this part right here just copies these files, 00 init and 10 TXs. It copies them to the Bades folder that was created when I installed that. I then reload, and now I can play around with things a bit. So there's one command here that says Daedalus CLI run Cardano Wallet, and another one that says Daedalus CLI send TX with metadata string. Okay, descriptive names. They do exactly what they do. These are functions inside of these scripts here, okay? So Daedalus CLI run Cardano Wallet comes from here, the 00-init file. And Roberto just used a bunch of command line magic and some grepping to kind of get the file paths for where everything lives under the hood, okay? So that once I had Flight open, now I could run this on my command line and be running a wallet. I'm just going to show you what that looks like, and then we'll keep going. First, let's run this command, Daedalus CLI run Cardano Wallet. Let's run it without Daedalus Flight running. Watch this. Okay. I get this warning that says, couldn't connect to node, retrying some other messages here. Okay. So just to show you that this doesn't work if I don't have Daedalus open. When I do have Daedalus open like I do now, the command should work. There it is. Okay, same command. Let me just move the wallet out of the way so we can take a look at what's going on here. All right, we quickly get a whole bunch of information coming through. We quickly get, some errors, some notices. There will be some warnings in here. Here, I can make that a tiny bit bigger. Basically, this does take a few moments to start working. So I'm going to let this work and then come back once it's running. And sure enough, we are now in business. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things now. First, I'm going to leave this running in the background. And I'm going to open up a separate terminal window so you can see I still have the Cardano wallet running in the background. And in another window, I can go check the documentation to see what we're going to do here. And you can see this is what we do. Daedalus CLI send TX with metadata string. That's our script. Remember, it's in this file. And it relies on some command line magic that we'll look at again right after I show you this part, okay? But basically, some of the things are coded in. Some of the decisions are already made for us. They're abstracted away, right? So we don't even have to think about them while using this function on the command line. And others we're going to enter as parameters. We're going to enter the name of the wallet first, the transaction amount, and then the address. And I've actually grabbed all of this already. So all I did is I copied this text right here and I pasted it into a little text file. That's clearly not going to be big enough. Let's go a little bigger. And I pasted it into this text file here. So this was the name of the wallet I set up in Daedalus Flight. That's a million Lovelaces, which is equivalent to 1 ADA. This is a receiver address that's inside the same wallet here. So all I'm doing is I'm sending 1 ADA from within my own wallet to create a transaction. And then as the final parameter, I'm including a string here, which can be up to 64 characters long. So let's grab this, copy it, come here. We'll see that our wallet is still running in the background. And then we're going to use this command. Okay. If everything works, it should ask me for a passphrase right now. It does. This is my spending password for this wallet. This is not my seed phrase, okay? Same spending password I would type into the wallet if I were sending from within, Daedalus to somebody else's wallet. Okay. Oh, well, let's try this again. Let's try it again. Maybe I just mistyped it. Ah, that's more like it. Okay. So here's our transaction. Check it out. It's pending. Maybe if you've ever played with a wallet, you're used to seeing that part. Okay. This looks like it's the fee. That many Lovelaces. Right. 0.17 ADA. Okay. Yep. This is the input. This is how much was in the transaction into which I entered the transaction. Sorry, I'm still practicing referring to transactions in the UTXO model instead of wallets, okay? It went from here to there. It was during epoch number 234 as expected. And here's our metadata string. Here's that JSON I showed you before, right? Key, type, and value. Finally, we get an ID that we can use. This is the hash of this transaction. And if I copy this, as soon as this transaction clears, I should be able to find this data in some of these front ends. Let's see if it worked. Okay, so first of all, what if I go back to Stake Pool Central? Yeah, there's been a few more metadata transactions with metadata than there were at the beginning of this video. Hopefully one of them was mine. Here it is. CSK 004, created on 8th of December 2020. Key, leet. Nice. All right. And if I go over here to AdaStat and I type the same transaction, I see the cost that we just saw under the hood, and indeed the metadata. Okay, so the fourth starter kit, you saw it here, and as long as the Cardano blockchain exists, I'll have this transaction here that I can go back and say, yeah, I made that. I did that. I made that starter kit on December 8th, and you can see that it happened during the epoch that was happening on December 8th. You can see this video of me. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about the blockchain creating trust. Finally, let's take a look inside this 10-TXS, right? This is for transactions. This file that has these various scripts inside that we're going to be able to use. So the one I just showed you is Daedalus CLI send TX with metadata string. And there's probably a lot to understand here, okay? But just to review what we saw before, here's that line that says metadata. And remember how we talked earlier about how you're going to have the key, the type, and the data value here. So that's what this script does. It pulls a key from this variable, tx meta key, which is set up here. And if I wanted to go to a different key, I could just change this and save this file, reload Bades, and go to that key. So earlier today, I typed, for example, 2020 1210 for the Ada Day art, right? I could set this key to whatever I want. Additionally, if you're starting to see how this works, taking variables from the command line, you could see how we could turn tx meta key into something that the user types on the command line instead of something that's hard-coded in. The word string is hard-coded right here. That's because that's what this script is doing, right? It's submitting a transaction with a string. But this could be the word int right here. This could be map or list. And indeed, below, you see that we used the word list. Let's go down a little farther. When we wanted to take a text file instead of just a single line of text, okay? So actually, again, I'm not going to show you this part, but this is actually how I uploaded the word art. I made a text file with that ASCII art inside, and then I used this script instead after adjusting this number to 2020 1210. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this. If you're interested in tinkering and you want to play with this, please make sure that you read everything here first and you understand it. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. We would love to talk to you about this stuff and kind of help out as you get started with your ideas. And the whole goal of Gimbalabs is to provide options that, for people who want to test out ideas. So this is kind of an initial experiment in that. All right, all I ask in return for these starter kits is that you let me know if this was helpful. And if you have ways that you would make it better, I would love to hear that. This was a playful starter kit. Our goal was to go on a little adventure and for me to do a little show and tell about something that we've been working on. Roberto and I, the whole Gimbalabs team, we've got some ideas for making interaction with Cardano even more accessible. So we're going to continue to build on the work we've started and look for ways to let people like me and you play with this stuff so we can learn what it can do and we can use it together. Keep in mind, we're still so early in all of this, and that's why we don't have a lot of abstraction yet. That's why we have to go hack and tinker to make things work. But soon so much more is coming, right? It's going to be more accessible. Within the next few weeks, we're going to be playing with tokens. So just like I messed around with metadata, I can't wait to mess around with tokens, see what we can do with those. And you could be damn sure that I'm going to be playing with the testnet for that, plenty more. I demonstrated some bad habits today, playing with the mainnet, using a script. Obviously, I know Roberto, but like again, I shouldn't be necessarily putting this out there in a way that encourages anybody to use it without understanding it. Those tools, right? The Instagrams of the Cardano platform where you don't have to worry about this stuff, they're all coming soon. I just wanted to provide this snapshot of where we're at on this adventure right now. You can't ever go wrong by keeping up with the IOHK blog, seeing where those links take you. And, again, I'm just so excited for everything that's coming down the pipe. And I can't wait to learn about it alongside you. Until then, happy ADA day, happy ADA week, and talk to you soon.